Hey Rat Bags, it's Jade, welcome to a Survivor Show special. Last week I showed you guys every single brand new release that will be coming, hopefully before the end of 2022. Today we're going to focus actually on the games that are out already. Big updates, DLC, maybe even new platforms in the next year or so. So let's go. If you want to catch up on what some other Survivor games have been doing, maybe dive back into them or check out some new stuff, this video is going to do it. It took a long time to work on because there's just so much information to process, so do leave a like if you find it useful. Let's go. Don't Starve Together receiving more content, a brand new expansion or free update, The Curse of the Moon Key. In fact, by the time you see this video, it should already be out. It came out a couple of days beforehand. Looks like they're adding some new playable space that's going to involve a lot more water, brand new creatures, new resources as you get this free content. Expect paid character DLCs, otherwise this update should be free and it's come to PC and I'll imagine coming to consoles about the same time or soon after. Last OASIS is undergoing massive changes. They're getting rid of so many of the systems that attracted me in the first place but seemingly just weren't helping the game to actually keep a constant player base. In a series of blogs over the last month or so, they've been talking about all the changes that are coming in Season 5, and this all kickstarts on July the 5th when you'll be able to access the beta branch and test out some new systems. The devs are making wholesale changes. No longer will you be able to unpack your base and put it onto your walkers and go off anywhere. No longer will some of the tiles, the maps that you explore, burn and force you to go to another one. A huge focus on PvE activities with a plethora of new creatures and new ways to play. These are huge changes. Last OASIS has been very PvP eccentric with little to no real PvE content, and that's obviously meant that not a lot of players have stuck around because they're just tired of getting ganked by big clans. So in their eyes, this will flesh out the experience more. They're going to have more starter areas for people to explore, more PvE zones before you basically start adventuring onto other tile sets and having combat with others. Some of the ideas sound great, some of them I am a bit sad. One of the things that attracted me to Last OASIS was trying to solve the PvP problem of offline raiding, and being able to store your walkers in an offline lobby has always been a big part of that and something I thought was great. The devs have been doing their dev blogs and explained that it's not meant a lot of people felt good about just leaving their stuff offline. They couldn't really get connected to the game as much because they didn't have a home base, somewhere to just park up in moderately safety. So that's the plan, and it all kicks off July the 5th. You can access the beta branch. It'll have a couple of the starter realms to try the new mechanics, maybe take a look at new creatures and go in depth a little bit with the new systems at play. And I'm guessing Season 5 will follow on within a couple of months. I really hope it works out. I absolutely loved the idea of Last OASIS and enjoyed it when it did launch, but it has had substantial issues. Fingers crossed this helps players on PC and Xbox have a more enjoyable experience. Another game having some big changes but also their next season is Tribes of Midgard. This will be going live in August and it's some big changes for their survival mode. You'll be able to freely place and build your own camps, your own bases anywhere on the procedurally generated maps. Tribes of Midgard, the focus is on protecting your village from hellthings and giants that will come and destroy it. And if that happens, it's the end of the game. But in the new revamped survival mode, you'll be able to play endlessly and not have to worry so much about these giants or creatures attacking on a nightly basis. It looks like fishing would also be added as part of this update, and they will still have a brand new saga mode where there'll be a new boss raid to take care of, new perks, new runes and much more. But it's the survival mode I'm most interested in. So that's going to be coming in August. Fingers crossed I get a chance to show you how it's progressing soon. Also look out for the future. They do have plans to add mounts, farming and more, maybe towards the end of 2022 and beyond. Conan Exiles recently announced their 3.0 plans and they evolve around sorcery. That's the content that's going to be coming, brand new ways to play with new spells as well as new rituals where you'll be able to summon the undead, new mounts and more. They're also introducing a revamped building and creative mode, particularly for console players so you don't have to use the cumbersome admin panels. Perks and attributes are being revamped and this is supposedly going to be going live before the end of Q3, which is September. I've made my feelings pretty clear on this. I did a big massive video talking about the unfair monetization that I think is going to be added as part of this update. They're adding battle passes, an MTX store, ways to level up with real money, basically adding all the crappy components of some of the monetization we've seen over the last few years. The claim is it does support the free content like the sorcery stuff, and it just wasn't maybe working out the way they were selling their culture packs in the past. I don't think anyone's going to be able to convince me this isn't going to end up just costing players more money to get the same sort of stuff they used to. But Joel Bidos, in a series of tweets back and forth between me and him, did say they will take on board feedback. So fingers crossed the final look at the monetization won't be as bad as I fear it will be. So fingers crossed they do tweak it a little bit and make it a little bit more fair for consumers, and hopefully a focus on getting new players to come and play the game rather than just focusing on the whales and the hardcore. Again, that's my opinion. I do understand a lot of you guys don't really care. You just want to see that new content sorcery. So good luck to you, and hopefully this arrives before the end of September. From the bad to the absolute best, Grounded is hitting 1.0 in September. Brand new content, new areas to explore, new bugs, armor, weapons, and the conclusion and actual full story of the game. I've put a lot of time into Grounded on my second channel most recently, and I'm just in love with the game once more. It's always been a great game, but playing it more regularly just really shows how good it is compared to so many others. So very much looking forward to discover the full story, more updates, more content, and they do have plans to carry stuff on after September as well. But 1.0 is looking extremely action-packed, filled with new resources and a whole collection of new bosses, including the Mantis to fight. So go and sub to my second channel now to see everything up to release. Couple busy months for the Nintendo Switch if you love survival games. Ark Survival Evolved is having its first ever update on the Switch 3 years after launch, promising new fidelity, better graphics, better performance, as well as a new Young Explorers mode, basically making a kid-friendly version of Ark. We'll also get to see the conclusion to a story DLC, Scorched Earth. You're going to be able to play the DLCs as they're launching a season pass, or it'll be part of this Ultimate Survivors pack, and basically a new map will be released every 2 months. With September having Scorched Earth as the first DLC, and then in line after that will be Aberration, Extinction, Genesis and Genesis Part 2. And it does look like they will be adding the free maps, although they haven't really given full confirmation exactly when these will appear. I've heavily criticised the Ark version, particularly just because it hasn't had any updates in 3 years, so fingers crossed this is the start of things to improve for Ark and Wildcard, and especially fans on Switch that felt hard done by. If you own the copy of the game already, you will be able to receive all of that content for free, bar the DLC maps. And then in October we've got another game for Switch fans. No Man's Sky is finally releasing. It's looking great, it's going to have all of the content that you'd expect from the Xbox, PlayStation and PC version. One of the best supported games you can play in terms of survival, 4 or 5 big chunky updates every single year. There is one little caveat though, it does look like multiplayer won't be there at launch with No Man's Sky. Not 100% sure if it will be added in, from what I can tell, maybe in some updates afterwards, but knowing how well they've done with the rest of the platforms and free content, no MTX, no battle passes, no nonsense, it's a good bet they will add that in eventually. So absolutely I'll be jumping in for this, I want to give this another try, any excuse to dive back into No Man's Sky. Steam players who really refuse just to click on one other application on their desktop will be pleased to know that Void Train is finally making an appearance. It's been on the Epic Games Store for at least a year now, loads of content, loads of drops, in fact I want to check it out as there's lots I've missed. A game about travelling through alternate dimensional portals and going through different areas, exploring, gathering resources, building and upgrading your train, getting unique firearms to take on weird creatures and some pretty badass soldiers. It is meant to be coming to the Xbox in the future as well as part of their game preview program, so fingers crossed, launching on Steam in October will be the first stages as well to eventually arriving on console. Dismantle is getting a paid DLC by looks of things, and it should be here by maybe the end of September on Steam first, and then I'm sure it will come to the other platforms it's on Xbox and PlayStation. If you don't know, Dismantle is kind of like a console friendly Project Zomboid. That's the closest I would put it as. It's actually a really cool little game. I totally missed it when it came out on console as I was just too busy in January covering other stuff. But I've tried it a few times since then and it's a great little game. It's got some really cool ideas in it. The DLC is going to be focused on exploring a new map, basically an underworld set in a pre-sequel style years before the big collapse of humanity. So you can expect new enemies, new resources and yes, a brand new area to explore. Apparently they're also going to be having some quality of life improvements come alongside this DLC. Great stuff for Dismantle. Astroneer continues its free updates. By looks of things, they're adding a whole track and train system to the game very soon. This got announced about a month ago, so it looks like it should be here in the next couple months. Another game that's had a whole bunch of support with updates absolutely free, as well as some paid cosmetics, the right way to do stuff. Astroneer is always a game that I never really got fully to grips with, but they had a massive improvement to controls also a couple months ago, so it'd be really interesting to see how far the game's come. Another little reminder that Medieval Dynasty should be hitting console, and hopefully it will be at some point before the end of 2022. There hasn't actually been an update since the early part of the year about the console plans, but that's what they said arriving in 2022. And it does look likely we'll see the last few updates for Green Hell in the next few months. They've been promising an overhaul of base building, as well as the ability to have more animal husbandry in the game, basically raising creatures and livestock. The building update seems to be adding tree houses that you'll be able to build, and this is all come to PC soon. Console players recently got the Spirits of Amazonia's 1 and 2, so they're still waiting for the third part of that. But once that arrives, I'm sure we won't be too long before we see the building and animal husbandry also arrive on console. So I'm expecting all that still before the end of the year. Icarus got a brand new update this week that enhances the long-term play of the game, basically giving more activities for endgame modes, including Horde mode. They've also got private servers on the incoming that should be happening very soon as well. In the end, I didn't really gel with Icarus. I was pretty hyped for it, but when it got here, I just found some of the mechanics pretty old, and just certainly the progression and the world that I was exploring pretty boring. And while it seems the Horde mode is still made up of some pretty generic creatures, hopefully the improvements with server hosting will encourage more people to give it a shot. I was pretty excited to see that Valheim has got a Xbox game preview release next year, but that isn't the only big news. Of course, we've got the MISTLAND update happening at some point between now and the end of the year. I'm predicting a September release. That's when I think we'll see the MISTLAND arrive. Dev's been showing off a bunch of new stuff, including a brand new tick creature that got added to the update, which should have new weapons and even more creatures to face off against while we explore the new areas. But that's not all. It's going to be available for free on the PC Games Pass in the winter time. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised thinking about it if we saw MISTLAND arrive exactly the same time it went free on the PC Games Pass, maybe in October. And of course, when it does arrive on Xbox next year, it will be Day 1 Games Pass free as well. It's still a very small team making this game, and they've put an emphasis on making sure quality rather than just quantity, which means that Valheim is one of the best running games you can try in early access in my opinion. So very excited about MISTLAND and it arriving on PC Games Pass and Xbox next year. Lens Island is having a big update apparently towards the end of the year. The devs are calling it 2.0. So far we've had a fishing update, but they did cancel plans for controller support at the present, so hopefully that does arrive in the future. Long Winter is another game that I've been keeping tabs on, playing it on the second channel, and they've been having great little updates, adding a whole host of things. It is pretty much Animal Crossing meets Rust, so I'm pretty sure they're going to have a whole host of updates every single month still. Scrap Mechanic just launched its challenge mode update a little while ago, and it seems to be going down pretty well. Brand new ways to play, a whole new survival tutorial, something that was definitely needed in a pretty tough game to onboard, and I'm looking forward to seeing the conclusion. This game's been in early access a long time now, and updates haven't always been that frequent, nor has the communication, but they certainly have improved in the last couple of years, and we are now starting to see even more previews of stuff that's incoming, especially the ability to custom make your own minigames. Always thought this might be a game that comes to Xbox after some interviews with developers a couple of years ago, so fingers crossed that does happen soon. SCUM of course still has plenty of early access updates, the latest one being the metabolism update, with again more focus on the nutrients you need, fats, carbons and proteins etc, and a revamp of it all. This stuff kind of bores me. One of the main things that put me off playing SCUM, as I felt a lot of it was unnecessary and just a bit overdone, but I'm sure some survival enthusiasts out there like the idea of this really in-depth survival game. No news about 1.0 and no news about next gen console ports possibly. It's still looking like this game won't be releasing out of early access until at least next year. You should see some updates for Subnautica and Below Zero in the next few months, especially on console, where they've been doing some stability kind of work and bug fixing and basically quality of life. The devs put out a blog post a little while ago stating that the aim was to get the console versions much more spruced up and performing a lot better. They've had substantial issues with both games ever since they did launch on consoles, and even PC can still be a bit taxing, so hopefully this finally helps the games out. V Rising absolutely smashed the charts when it sold over 1 million copies in just literally a week's time, and it's sold even more since then. There hasn't been too much news about its future plans, unless I've completely missed it in terms of roadmap stuff. So fingers crossed we start getting some news about that, but otherwise there's been plenty of bug fixing and just making sure the game's balanced for the millions of players that flock to play this vampiric survival game. Volcanoids is a cool little game, and it does look like in the future it will be coming to console. The devs have made certain plans known, and I'm looking forward to seeing what they're going to do with drones. This game's quite cool. It's a little indie game. It's had a bunch of content and updates. They're doing all the right things, adding more to it where you basically go and mine the overworld and then take refuge in your mining ship underneath when a big volcano pretty much spews lava everywhere. Fighting off sort of steampunk style robots, definitely one of them games you need to come back and revisit from time to time to see exactly all the new stuff being added. And as you can see, it looks like they are implementing controller support, which will lay the groundwork for eventually some console ports. And then the expected stuff, DayZ should have at least 2 more updates possibly before the end of the year, as they've been doing every quarter. More new guns, slight tweaks or enhancements to some of their systems. And who knows, maybe we'll start actually getting some sexy stuff. Can't knock DayZ though, the player numbers are as healthy as they've ever been. While the jury still might be out on how it performs on console, it certainly is still watched a lot on Twitch and on YouTube. So expect another 2 updates before the end of the year. And it goes without saying, of course, Rust will continue to see updates on PC every single month, maybe not so much on console. Console is a shadow of the PC version, probably one of the worst ports I've ever seen, but certainly there is still some sort of fandom for it. So expect hopefully maybe some more monuments to be added, but I don't think you're going to see anything like helicopters or vehicles, not until next year at the very least, if ever. Double 11 have messed around with what they said they would produce in the first year so much. We was expecting electricity and power, instead we ended up getting oil rigs. And the latest update they had added fishing boats, and still no sign of them power systems. On PC, Rust continues to be one of the best survival games going. Lots of updates every single month, although the last one was controversial, making plenty of changes to recoil and basically a bit more friendlier for people to learn how to shoot. It looks like there will be substantial changes in the future when they enable server transfers. There's going to be mechanics where you'll be able to take barge boats or possibly even the helicopters and travel to other servers to go and raid. It was polarising when it got introduced to Ark Survival Evolved so many years ago, so it'll be interesting to see the fallout of how this works, and I'm presuming that will happen at some point later on this year. 7 Days to Die, of course, will receive its Alpha 21 update for PC and Xbox Windows, but of course not console. There was a bit of controversy earlier on this year when the game did appear on Xbox Games Pass and PC Games Pass, with the Xbox version still being the one that hasn't had an update in nearly 5 years. Alpha 21 is being billed as one of the very last updates to hit before the game finally goes gold and comes out of early access in nearly a 10-year run. I expect a September or October release for Alpha 21, but of course that does mean there's going to be no gold version of this game again until next year. And that means consoles won't get any significant update until that time. So forget seeing any of these improvements, new additions, guns, weapons and more on console until at least late next year. I don't play the PC version and I won't do until I see updates for console, that's just my thing, but I'm sure a lot of players out there on PC will enjoy the new content that's been added in with its almost yearly content drop. And then finishing off with a game that I really love and have been playing a lot on the second channel, Core Keeper. It is a survival little game and I think you should absolutely check it out if you haven't already. It will continue to receive updates. It's just had its latest one, the Sunken Sea, which added whole brand new biomes to explore, new enemies and resources, and I'm sure they've got big plans for the rest of the year as well. More new biomes, more new creatures, more new weapons and gear for a great little survival game you should pick up. And that is about it. That's the pick of the bunch. Sure, there's a few survival games I might have included, stuff what's going on with Atlas and more, but to be honest, I'm only focusing on the games that I think personally are great or I know are the most popular. But a lot of them games, and especially some of the smaller little survival games, I'm sure will get lots of content, but they're just not that big or popular enough in my opinion, or doing anything really super interesting. Hopefully stuff will change my mind if I see it come out, and I'll keep you guys up to date with everything that's going on in World Survival over the next 6 months. Do go and check out the video where I talk about all the new survival games still to release this year, and look out next week for the big survival releases of 2023. Until next time, Ratbags, laters.